Hello students, I'm Dr. Himanshu Kandpal, Assistant Professor English, Government MS College for Women, Bikaner. Today we are going to start a new poem, Go and Catch a Falling Star, written by Donne. First of all, we are going to study about the poet. Donne was born in 1572 in London, the son of a rich iron merchant. On his father's side, he came from an old Welsh family, and on his mother's side, from the Haywoods and Sir Thomas More's family. Both families were Catholics. In those days, Catholics were subject to severe persecution. His education could not be continued at Oxford and Cambridge because of his religion. Then he entered Lincoln's Inn. At first a Roman Catholic, he later became Anglican in 1615 because of James' first orders. He was secretary to the Lord Keeper, Sir Egerton, from 1596 to 1602, but upon secretly marrying Anne More, the Lord Keeper's wife's niece, he fell from grace. His sermons rank among the best in the 17th century. He wrote a large variety of poems, satires, epistles, elegies, and miscellaneous poems. He was a curious and versatile poet. His poetry is considered to be the representative of metaphysical school of poetry for the style he employs. Metaphysical school of poetry, we are going to do it in a separate video. Still, I would like to tell you something about metaphysical poetry. Metaphysical poets, a phrase coined in 1781 by the critic Dr. Johnson following a comment on done by the poet. Some of the metaphysical traits that John Donne employ in his poems are like use of fantastic conceits and monstrous hyperboles, language and versification, because it is a poetry of revolt, and he often violates the rules of meter, rhyme and versification. His poems have abrupt colloquial openings. There is a unification of sensibility, and we find difficulty and obscurity in his poems. His poetry contains all the characteristics of metaphysical poetry, such as the use of conventional verse form, deployment of conceits. What is a conceit? Conceit is a figure of speech which establishes a striking parallel, usually an elaborate parallel between two apparently dissimilar things. Complex figures of speech, unconventional themes, witty ideas, and unique, sometimes culminating into cynicism. Cynicism here means that it is like believing that most people are not sincere. People only do things to serve their own needs. They are distrustful. They are distrustful of human nature and motives. Human conduct is motivated by self-interest. His important works are An Anatomy of World, that was written 1611, Progress of the Soul. As I've told you, he wrote a large variety of poems, satires, epistles, elegies, and miscellaneous poems. He followed the middle path between blind faith and reformation. His sermons attracted large audiences. He wrote on the subjects such as love, sexuality, religion, and death. He fell sick twice and breathed his last in London on March 1631. Interpreting the poem Go and Catch a Falling Star. This 27-line love poem Go and Catch a Falling Star was first seen in his collection Songs and Sonnets. The three stanzas of this poem culminate into a cynical assertion that no women, no woman can be consistent. So, in this poem, Donne reveals cynical attitude towards womanhood. He thus breaks away from the Petrarchan tradition of woman worship. He has himself experienced woman's inconstancy and so regards a constant woman as a rarity. However, he says, perchance, if you such a woman is ever met with, she would deserve all honor, worship, and adoration. The poem is a dramatic monologue in which the speaker addresses an unknown listener. The first stanza enlists a series of impossible things. If you go for the search, you are never going to find these things. Go a series of impossible things. Catch a falling star. It is not falling star is known for its destruction and being out of reach. Find a pregnant mandrake root. Pregnant mandrake root. Mandrake root is a forked root of the poisonous mandrake plant. The plant was supposed to have human qualities, but a child cannot be begotten on it. The root of mandrake splitting in two parts is often thought to be a man's two legs. Consequently, a mandrake root represents male. However, the wish for female to be pregnant on a mandrake root can only be heard in fairy tales. So it is an impossible thing. Gain knowledge of the past, because all past years in the third line indicates those past can never return. Solve the mystery of devil's cloven foot. The devil's cloven foot is believed to be like that of an ox or the sheep, as observed that the foot of an ox or sheep can never be split. Witness the sight of mermaids singing. Mermaids, as referred to in the fifth line, are mythological Greek creatures who lured sailors to their deaths with their singing and enchanted the mind of the sailor to crash. The most astonished thing is that mermaids were actually genderless, which meant their beauty was for nothing but to kill. Nothing but to kill. Or keep oneself immune from envy's sting and find out the wind that has prospered the honest mind. To envy is out of one's instinct, while to keep off envy's stinging is out of the question. If a man is honest and loyal enough, there is nothing to promote his desire. Consequently, it is impossible to find wind to advance an honest mind. So, from the above series of impossible things, the presented facts in the first stanza are some of the things beyond the bounds of possibility. Just as these tasks are impossible to be accomplished, similarly, it is impossible to find a beautiful and constant woman. In the second stanza, the speaker's tone initially softens a little but becomes harsh by the end when he says, even if one could find an honest woman by the time one could convey this to the person next door, the woman would have turned infidel to two or three of them. So, further in the poem, poet tells that if anybody tells the poet of a woman who is both fair and true, the poet would go to her on a pilgrimage to some holy shrine. Such a woman is really worthy of worship and adoration. But on second thought, the poet realizes that it would be futile to undertake such journey. Why? The woman might have been faithful to a particular movement, but she can never remain faithful for long. By the time one writes a letter to her, she would have had 2 or 3 other lovers. A woman's constancy is short-lived and is not to be relied upon. The ideas and images expressed in this poem are far-fetched and extravagant, which is a peculiar feature of Donne's poetry. It has a colloquial diction and argumentative tone. The poem is written in tetrameter with the rhyme scheme AB, AB, CC, D, D, and D. So the meter and rhythm of the poem is closest to tetrameter. Tetrameter is a line of 4 metrical feet which comprises of 8 syllables. Using mostly iambs, metrical feet, that is unstressed followed by stressed syllable, but the poem is not limited to this and uses other metrical feet. This is about the introduction to the poet and poem. Thank you.